Brand new for the 2025 model year is the Volvo EX30. You're going to find it rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive with a few primary trim levels and the option for quite a few features depending on how you have it built out. And in this video, you're going to learn everything you need to know about the Volvo EX30. Pricing for the EX30 in Canada starts at around $57,300 versus $46,200 down in the US. And the price point's going to go up depending on if you're rear-wheel versus all-wheel drive, and then which trim level, because there are three primary options, looking at the Core, the Plus, or the Ultra trim level instead. Inside of the EX30, you're going to find 18-inch wheels in the entry-level trim with 19s in the Plus and the Ultra trim level. You're going to find the EX30 available either rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. So the all-wheel drive version is going to be more powerful in comparison. Rear-wheel drive in wintertime, if you're in northern states or Canada like me, where you get snow a couple months out of the year, they just don't go together well by any stretch. But there's good pick up and go. The rear-wheel drive model has the best possible range. And then if we look at just basic handling here, no complaints. That's good. That's just Volvo though in general. Their cars are fantastic from a handling perspective. The front end of the EX30 looks like a lot of other Volvo electrics that you've probably seen. Nice, simple design. It is interesting that most electrics, I know you don't need a traditional grille, but they go for this flat design instead. Having an actual grille setup, just for aesthetics, I think would look kind of cool. But like I said, basic Volvo design there. You've got LED headlamps inside of the ride that have this interesting sideways T shape, which look pretty nice. And then just underneath the lamps, there's a little black bezel that traces all the way throughout. And then there's a line that stretches all the way across. So a nice glossy highlight. Styling just works. Technology-wise, inside of the EX30, there's the option for the forward park sensing system, along with a front-facing camera, side-mounted cameras, and a backup cam. So you will find a full 360 view inside of the EX30 in the highest trim levels, and it's also got a pretty unique 3D view on top of that. There's a lot of other great features that you're going to get in the Ultra trim that aren't available in the lower trims, but if you're just looking for something entry level, the Core or the Plus are pretty good options. It's just that if you need the creme de la creme with all of the features, the Ultra is the way to go. Underneath the hood of the EX30, it's a simple design. There is a little frunk space that's available there. Not much space, but oh, well, that's kind of neat. Just notice that. You can see like the little EX30 car, some clouds, and then a moose off to the right side. Nice job, Volvo. A little kind of like touch of something different under there. Yeah, there's a little frunk space, not a ton by any stretch, but there's something there. And then the only thing that you have to worry about inside the ride, topping up your wiper fluid along the right-hand side. Power-wise, inside of the EX30, two different options. So there's either the rear-wheel drive single motor setup or the all-wheel drive dual. This one's the single motor rear-wheel drive setup, which means you're looking at 268 horsepower, 253 pound-feet of torque. So not a powerful car by any stretch, but getting back up to highway speed in 3, 2, and... it can pull 100. Okay. Yeah, the car can pull nicely. Ooh. This is the benefit of an electric. It's instant torque. You put your foot down and you're just having a blast. Power-wise, inside of the dual is so much better than the rear-wheel drive. So if power is your thing, you're absolutely going to want to go all-wheel drive. Your overall range gets affected a little bit, which I'll touch on in a minute there as we get to charging, but realistically, you're going to enjoy the vehicle either way. So the big thing is going to come down to if you're in colder climates where you get snow versus not, because snowy climate, you want to get all-wheel drive. That's my personal recommendation. It's not necessary if you don't want to, though. And then the warranty inside of the Volvo world is pretty good. Basic and powertrain, you're going to be a 4-year, 50,000 mile, 80,000 kilometer. And then the electric components, so for the hybrid EV, well, I guess EV component side of things, it gets bumped up to 8 years, 100,000 mile, 160,000 K instead. Then there's always the option of increasing your warranty at time of purchase if you really need that extra peace of mind. But The EX30 is not a big car by any stretch. So I'm 6 feet tall and I am towering over this ride. But getting in is surprisingly easy. First row, easy enough. Second, ooh, equally as easy. One downside is that you're not going to find assist handles across any door on either side. But I mean, easy enough to slide in and out if you need to. The EX30, hold on as we walk away here, features power folding side view mirrors. Then, one interesting thing about the car, yeah, you can see them going there again. The key fob is blank. So there's nothing on the fob, so no way to unlock or lock the vehicle, remote start, things like that. The majority of things are done through the Volvo app. Now, there is also the option for this little guy. So you're either going to get this or you're going to get the little key fob instead. So the fob or this, all you can do to unlock, either approach or just tap in order to be able to lock or unlock the vehicle. It's funky. It takes a bit of getting used to though. You're going to do the majority of things right through the Volvo app, but if you want to walk through on how that's used, you'll find it in the description of this video. But like I mentioned there, power folding side view mirrors. They also have turn signals in them, a blind spot monitoring system, so it'll highlight right there if somebody enters the blind spot on either side. There's also a side mounted camera inside of the vehicle as well. Then, hopping inside. Nice. But before we get in there, there's nothing really nothing outside of the handle for the vehicle. Like you've got a little bit of storage down low, nice little comfortable armrest up high. There's an EX30 badge and that nice blue highlight that follows through the seats that carries through the dash here. But outside of that, there's nothing. Everything is controlled through the infotainment system. But down low, you've got your trunk release, so just double pull. These are the rubberized trays you're going to find right from the factory. And I definitely recommend getting these because it's way easier to take these out and clean them down compared to carpeted mats. A few different types of seats, seating material that's available, multi-way adjustable seat. The function here is interesting. So there are 3 different modes that you can hit in order to adjust different elements. So you can adjust the seat to move up, slide forwards, backwards, up and down, push again, and then you can also adjust the lumbar support multi-way. Pretty funky. And then inside the vehicle, taking a peek at the steering wheel inside of the Volvo EX30. One thing that's glaringly obvious is that the EX30 does not have a traditional cluster screen, and you're also not going to find a head-up display inside of the ride. So all that basic information is going to be along the infotainment system on the top side. So that middle part there, so that's going to be locked into place. So think of that as your traditional cluster. So as you go to drive, your speed, things like that will show up along the top, but we'll dive into that one last because there are a few other things about that screen that you need to know. So the steering wheel inside of the EX30 is going to be manual telescoping. So just in the middle of the column, there's a release in order to go in and out, up and down to find that perfect position for you. Once you find it, you're going to click it in order to lock it back into place. Stick along the left-hand side is going to be for your blinkers. And then you can also flash your high beams out this way instead. As of right now, I'm currently in the auto mode, which means that I can't turn on my headlamps, or my high beams, I should say, permanently. So you can see the high beam option there. You can flash them in the auto mode, but you can't permanently lock them out. You actually have to hop into your quick launch tray, and that gives you a few options. So if we go into exterior lights, and then you're going to go into your headlamp mode instead. So headlamp mode, we're going to push up to confirm, and you can see there that the lights are now on. To permanently lock your high beams out, you can then push away or pull them towards you in order to turn them off. So you can flash them out this way. It's just that when you're in the auto mode there, you just can't permanently lock your high beams out, so you can flash them no problem. There's a little rocker along the left stick, and that's going to let you adjust the windshield wipers too. So you can adjust it out, but the EX30 does feature an auto wiper. So what that means is that as rain starts to hit the windshield, you'll notice that the wiper goes automatically. It might only go once or twice, or just keep on going. If you wanted to just do a single wipe, along the tip of the left stick, there are a few buttons there. The one on the top, if you do a light push, that's just going to give you a single wipe. You could also do a push and hold if you wanted to get that front wiper fluid going. There's a button on the bottom, so just a single button push is going to turn on the rear wiper. Stick along the right-hand side is going to be your shifter. So you've got your reverse along the top there with this beautiful backup camera. And then there's also the option for a full 3D view. So there's a full 360 camera inside of this ride. So you can see here, you can adjust out and see what's going on all the way around you. It's actually really, really neat the way that that works. But you've got your reverse, drop down lightly in order to get yourself into neutral, and then drive, and then button push on the tip of the right stick in order to throw yourself into park instead. So it does take a little bit of getting used to in order to be able to adjust yourself out between all these options. Like getting it in neutral is probably one of the weirdest things. So you go to reverse first, or if you're in drive or whatever the case may be, lightly push up for a second, and that's going to switch you into neutral. Because if you're up, you push down, that's going to get you into drive. So there's this kind of nice little middle area in order to get yourself into neutral. But it's really straightforward being able to do it. So that's going to be your right stick. From there, the buttons along the left-hand side here are going to be for your cruise control system, and it's strictly adaptive cruise, so your set it and forget it cruise. As you start driving, you push the plus button along the top, and that's essentially going to turn the cruise control system on and set it at your current speed. If you push up or push down, that's going to increase or decrease 5 kilometers or 5 miles per hour at a time. If you push and hold down or push and hold up, that's going to increase or decrease 1 kilometer or 1 mile per hour at a time instead. Then there's the option of moving between either your pilot assist or just regular adaptive cruise control. Pilot assist, it's not full self-driving, but as long as the vehicle recognizes the lane markings, it keeps you nice and balanced in your lane. So even if your hands are off the steering wheel for a few seconds, eventually you've got a message letting you know that you've got to put your hands back on the steering wheel, so steering is required, but it's pretty neat that's available. And then the button along the bottom here. So as a default, that's going to be able to switch out the top part of that screen instead. So there are a few different views that are available, but you can also have this button set up so that it turns one pedal drive on or off, and that's done through the infotainment system. Then you've got your buttons along the right-hand side here. This one is your voice command prompt. So you can do things like change stations if you wanted to be able to turn on heated steering wheel.
Sure. Turning on the steering wheel heater.
So you can turn on your steering wheel heater if you want to. You can turn on your heated first row seats. You can adjust the climate if you'd like to. You can sync the climate up. So there's a lot that you can do inside of the vehicle once you actually get the hang of it using your voice. So big ones are going to be changing radio stations, navigating using your voice, adjusting climate and things like that. But your best bet, once you get your Volvo, just push the button there. Get it to do some things, get used to it, because like I said, you can adjust your climate and things like that out using your voice. Because I know some people just aren't crazy about having the climate control settings built right in. So I want you to think of this as your home screen. You've got your current time, what the outside temperature is, along with your connection level along the top right side. There's this little bar along the top as well. You can swipe down in order to see if there are any active notifications that are available. And you saw there, you've got maps, you've also got your current audio, and then your phone. So these are essentially widgetized areas that are locked into place. So you don't have the flexibility of adjusting them. But if you hit the home icon on the bottom, that's going to hide them. So you can show or hide those additional ones to get a fuller screen map experience instead. You've got a quick launch tray for which features were open last. And then along the bottom, your home button, along with an app tray. You can adjust your volume this way, and then adjusting it this way is neat. You can also do it on the steering wheel by pushing up and down this way. So if you wanted to adjust audio this way, you've got that flexibility. Then you can also change between presets by scrolling right or left on this pad. Pushing that brings you back to the home screen. You've got some climate settings there. So think of this as a quick launch tray for the climate settings. So you could toggle the heated steering wheel on to 3 different levels, turn on your heated first row seats as well. There's dual zone climate control, so you can have it set for something different passenger driver side, link the passenger to the driver's side instead, hide those basic settings, tap this in order to get to a series of advanced settings. So you've got your auto mode, which means the vehicle is going to figure out what speed to go with for everything. You've also got your front defroster. Do you want it going to your windshield, face, feet, some sort of combination of all of the above, max air conditioning, defrosters, recirculate air as well. Then you can adjust this out for 3 different auto levels. You can fully adjust it out for a manual mode. So if you wanted to manually control everything, you'd have that flexibility. Same idea, windshield, face, feet, etc. You can see here that there's also the option for an air purifier, which makes the cabin air really clean. You can automatically recirculate that. You can turn climate off completely if you'd like to. There's air quality, so you can see how we're doing here. 2.5 parts per million, which is great. And then climate settings are available too. So parking comfort's kind of neat. So it does say that you shouldn't leave people or pets locked in the car, but at the same time, you have to run out, you're leaving a spouse in the seat next to you there. You can just hit the start button here. And what that's going to do is keep climate active and essentially goes until your battery level's 20%. So if you wanted to go shopping, leave your spouse in the car, you'd have that flexibility. And then you can also set an individual timer for the climate as well. And inside of the Volvo phone app, you'd also have the flexibility of being able to do things like turn your climate on. You can unlock the doors, you can drop down the glove box and a few other neat features, including changing up your charging schedule and things like that. But if you want to walk through on the app specifically and how to set it up, you'll find it down in the description of this video. Lots of options here. You can hit the little icon view in order to get to a few other options. Do you want the heated steering wheel to come on automatically when you start the vehicle up? Yay or nay? And some other basic settings there. That's for climate. Then you've got a boatload of additional settings. So quick controls, car status, and advanced settings as well. So we'll get to that one last because there's a boatload of things to cover off here. Let's go through and start off here. And we'll kind of just go line by line. So starting off with media. So as of right now, there are no phones connected, so I don't know why I selected that to start. Let's go with our radio first here. So you can see you've got the option for FM inside of the ride, so there's no AM station availability. There are some apps that you can download if you wanted to get AM stations or additional radio stations, but as a default, FM is your only option. You can see here there's a star icon next to these, and these are going to be your preset or your favorites, so you can navigate through, star out whatever stations that you'd like to have saved as your favorited stations. And then from there, if you tap on favorites, that's going to have all of the stations that you favorited there instead. You can hit this little icon in order to go back to different apps for audio. You can hit the icon here in order to turn on HD radio, which would be stations that are broadcast digitally instead. So it's straightforward. You can tap this in order to go to a fuller screen. When you're on just regular radio, pause doesn't actually pause the song. What it's doing is essentially acting as a mute button. And then you could also change between stations this way, dropping back down. Hopping back home, you've got your camera that's available there, so quick launch to get into your camera. The quality of the camera is fantastic. Love what Volvo's done there. Then exit out to Google Assistant. So you've got your voice command prompt there, and you can do so many different things. So we can either hit it there, or you can also hit the voice command prompt on the steering wheel. Turn on heated steering wheel.
Got it. Turning on the steering wheel heater.
So you'd be able to turn on the heated steering wheel there. You'd also be able to adjust out the differences between the passenger and the driver's side. You could sync climate up using your voice too. Sync up the temperature.
All right, syncing the temperature.
So it syncs the passenger side to whatever the driver's side is. So the voice assistant is pretty smart. You can navigate using your voice and so many other things. I know some people aren't crazy about having climate control baked right into the screen, but once you get the hang of using the assistant there to change it out instead, it's really straightforward to use. From here, you've got Google Maps. So this is your map application that's built into the screen. So Google Maps is very straightforward to use, no different than using it on your phone. Along the top there, you can search for addresses using your voice. You can hit the search icon there in order to search for addresses. You can search by GPS coordinates, point of interest icons. So if you have a certain place you want to go to, so looking at Tim Hortons to see what's around me, you can see there are a bunch of options that are available. Let's go to one that's a little bit further away. Let's go to number 9. There we go. And you can see there are a few options. It's going to tell you what your battery percentage is when you get there. You can tap this to see if there's parking available. You can see if there are additional routes available too. So you can see 3 unique routes. So if you wanted to go a certain way instead, you'd have the flexibility to be able to do it. You can adjust things to avoid on your route. So did you want to avoid highways, toll roads, ferries, things like that? And then you can also exit out and you're started. You can hit exit in order to cancel that route. Hit search again to see the previously searched for destination. Tap it again to continue going. You can also add in an additional stop. So we're going to the Tim Hortons, but I don't know, maybe along the way you wanted to choose another destination, and maybe you wanted to see what charging is available too. So if we said charge point, so charge point or charging stations, so we can see what charging stations are available. So if we wanted to go this way first, you could then add in that stop. You've got Tim Hortons into the charging station, so done, and you can see there, back and forward. You can edit the stops out if you want to. So this little hamburger icon, you can drag it up and down. So if you wanted to stop at the charge station first, you could. You can exit out if you wanted to just cancel one of the routes, or one of the end waypoints, I should say. Start is going to get you going again. And then you can hit the little X icon there in order to be able to cancel your route out. From here, you can hit this little icon in order to see different views. So do you want a satellite, like a terrain view instead, or something simplified? Adjusting things out on your route, so avoiding highways, toll roads, and ferries. You can download offline maps as well. So if you know you're going somewhere where you won't have a good connection, you'd be able to download the maps so you could still navigate as you drive. There's EV payment options available, so if you wanted to search for free charging stations and things like that, that's available. You could mute out notifications so you can just get alerts. So as you're coming to an upcoming turn, do you want just alerts? Do you want an alert and a voice? Or do you want nothing to happen at all? You can change out your heading this way. So north up, different views there. You've got full pinch to zoom capabilities available here too. Recenter it back on you. And one nice thing about Google Maps is that if you've logged in to your Google account, what's going to happen is if you search for addresses on your phone, it's going to automatically launch all of your previously searched for addresses here. Benefit of signing in there is it's good in order to have your maps set up, and then also for the Google Play Store, which we'll touch on in just a second. But that's using navigation inside of the ride. It's incredibly easy to do, which means next up is going to be adding in Apple CarPlay. Oh, what we're going to do on the phone, we've got Bluetooth there. So we're going to go to Bluetooth here and add in a new device. We've got the iPhone here, so let's go ahead and pair. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, there we go. Perfect. All right, so for whatever reason, just gave me an error, but now we've got PIN numbers and they matched up. So let's go ahead and pair. Do you want to allow access to contacts and favorites? This is not my car, so I'm saying no to that one. And we are now connected. So you could stop here if you want to. So you're connected over Bluetooth, so you'd be able to make phone calls. And then you've also got the flexibility of using CarPlay. So if we hit the little icon here, we've got our phone connected for phone calls and for media. If we tap the little icon here for CarPlay, if you don't have it, tap into the Apple CarPlay side of things. Now on your phone, it's saying, do you want to use CarPlay with the Volvo? So let's go ahead and use CarPlay. We have to make sure, you can deselect these if you really want to, but just hit accept. And a few seconds in, look at that, fully connected. And you can see there, nothing exciting. So we're currently connected and it's nice and responsive. Now, from here, you've got your little home screen. You can tap this in order to get to the home screen, back to the icon view instead. And you can see here, this screen is kind of customizable. So you've always got which map was last opened along the top and then search bar. And then you've also got your now playing. So if you've got media going. If you have a calendar notification coming up today that hasn't passed, then you've also got the calendar box here. But if there's no notification today, the search box would be stretched across the side here. So there'd be only 2 boxes. But outside of that, there's no way to customize it. So it's not a widgetized area at all. You can hit this to get back to the icon view and swipe across. Along the bottom, you've got your current time. And then these apps are ones that were open last. So your map, your audio application, or miscellaneous application. So these ones were the last ones that were opened, along with your current connection level and your battery level. But you've got Apple Maps, Google Maps, and Waze. So Apple Maps available here. And it's straightforward using it. You've got slight pinch to zoom, not an overly accurate pinch to zoom available there, but it's there. And then Google Maps is the same idea. So you've got your option of moving around using your finger there. If for some reason it's got me in the middle of the ocean, happens sometimes. And then you've got Waze as well. So Waze, hands down, is normally my favorite map application to use anyways. Big reason why. If there are speed traps, people are going to mark that off. If there's construction, if there's traffic, things like that, people are pretty good at marking those things off on the highway. And then you can mark things off too. So if you notice that there are things going on the highway, like let's say if there are speed traps and other things going on, you'll be able to mark that off yourself. Back home, flow and charge point are going to be for electric vehicle driving, so different charge stations that were available. The one downside is that the screen unfortunately does not support video playback through CarPlay. So no video playback capabilities whatsoever. You can use VLC for audio, Live One's a radio app. There are a series of other ones, and you can kind of customize the look here. If you go into settings, you can adjust it to driving focused if you didn't want to end up getting any notifications as you drive. You've got basic wallpaper too. So if you wanted to change up the look, like let's say if something like this speaks to you a little bit more, you'd have the flexibility of being able to change that instead. But it's nice. And then you can customize the icon layout too if you'd like to. On your phone, if you go into your settings, you're going to jump into General and then CarPlay, find your vehicle. You can forget it, you can customize it, or turn it off. So if we go customize, you could hit the little hamburger icon on the outside and do a drag and drop in order to customize the layout here. Anything with a minus next to it, you can remove it from the screen as well. So if we swipe across, you'll see there that some of the apps have disappeared, but it saves it along the bottom of the phone, so you can add them back in. But if you've played around with the layout too much and you don't like what you've done, along the top right side of the phone, there's a reset option. So you're just going to tap reset, reset, and that's going to bring you back to the factory default layout screen for the icons instead. Then let's say for whatever reason you can't even get to this step, so CarPlay is not working for you whatsoever. Check down in the description of this video. I've put together a little walkthrough that you can check out that goes through some common CarPlay issues and how you can look at fixing them as well, but it's straightforward using it. If you hop back to your little home screen there, you've got your Apple CarPlay, so you can jump back in this way. If you're back on the home screen, you can see there you've got CarPlay along the bottom, so same idea, you can tap to get back inside. If you hit the little car icon along the bottom, you could go into some additional settings. So you've got your controls, charging, connectivity is the one we're looking for. And we've got the iPhone that's currently being connected. So if you tap the three little buttons here, you're currently connected to CarPlay. But if you disconnect from CarPlay, that's going to reconnect over Bluetooth instead, where you could choose to use the phone strictly for phone calls or for media, or you can fully remove the device. And back, actually, we go back to the home screen. There we go. You can see there, we're just connected over Bluetooth and CarPlay. Not connected because you've got to set it back up. That's how you set up iPhones inside of the Volvo EX30. Setting up Android devices is the exact same process. And one downside though is that you don't have the flexibility of using Android Auto inside of this screen. So it's strictly going to be Bluetooth that's available. So if we go back to our little car icon, and this is if you've already got a phone connected. So we're going to hit the car icon, go into settings, connectivity, and then you've got the phones here, but we're looking for add a new device. And then on your phone, you're looking for Volvo to show up. And we're going to go ahead and click Volvo S9 Plus. And it's going to take a second. PIN numbers match up. So let's go ahead and OK and confirm. Okay. Then it's asking me, do I want to allow access to contacts and messages? So this is not my car, so I'm definitely saying no to that one. And then you might get another error message there, but I'm now fully connected to the Android device. So if I go back to the home screen here, you can see that I'm currently connected. So I can hop inside for phone calls, recents, contact, keypad, etc. You can also hit this little swap icon if you wanted to get back to this screen. And then from there, you can hook up to one of the other phones instead. Like I said, downside here is that you've strictly got the option for Apple CarPlay, no Android Auto, but you can connect to your Android device over Bluetooth to make phone calls and things like that. And then inside of the PlayStore, you'd be able to download additional apps if you wanted to. But straightforward. Back inside, let's do a quick swap, and we're back on this screen. You can toggle Bluetooth off completely if you'd like to. You could hit the three little dots here if you wanted to launch back into the other phone, but you can see here, you've got these buttons now, so that's on both of them. So if you wanted to, you could use one phone for strictly phone calls if you'd like to, and then you can use the other phone strictly for media. So you can kind of do a little bit of a mix and match there if you'd like to, or just hit remove, and that's going to delete the devices from the vehicle. And that's how you set up Android and iPhone devices inside of the EX30. And back from here, let's go back home. And next up is going to be the Play Store. So you can see here that there are some other apps that I've already installed. So Angry Birds, Fireplace, and Waze. Like Waze is my go-to app, so I downloaded it right to the vehicle. But if that's not the case for you, so if you don't have many apps, you're going to sign in, and it's straightforward to do. So it's going to take a second here, so getting ready to sign in. And all you have to do is pull up your phone, and you're just going to scan the QR code using your photos, and you're going to tap on the settings icon there, and then it's going to ask you to sign in. Okay, and just a second here, it's just running through the sign-in process, and this is where you're going in order to actually be able to download apps to the vehicle. And there's one other cool thing now that I'm signed in that I'll show you. So you can see different apps that are available, so different games and things like that that you can use while you're parked. Chrome is available here as an option too. Then there are a bunch of other options that are available. So if there are certain apps that you like on the Android Auto side of things or the Android side, you can find the majority of them here. You can hit this in order to look at additional options, but now that we're also signed in, so you can download different apps, but if we go back to the home screen now, I'm now signed in on Google Maps. And one of the benefits there is that I can look at all of my previously searched for addresses that have been done on my phone. So very beneficial. So if you've searched for addresses on your phone, you can see what's going on here instead. Back home into the icon view, we've now got Chrome that's been installed to the vehicle. There we go, and I'm actually curious if this is going to work. So if we go, will this actually work? Oh, fingers crossed. Does it work like a regular browser? Oh, I think it might. I think it might. There we go. So you can see here on my channel, I've got like a boatload of different videos that are available. So key fob tricks for not only just Ford vehicles, for Volvo and things like that, but you've got full video playback that's available here. And it's strictly going to be when you're parked, but I mean, that is super cool. Love that you've got that available as an option, but there are so many different apps. You've got Angry Birds, a car fireplace. If you wanted something a little bit more relaxing, you've got that available as an option instead. There's a fully digital owner's manual here too. So if you're getting weird messages inside of the upper part of the screen here, you want to know how things work. So let's say if you wanted to know different things about charging, you can see different charge options that are available, how long charging is going to take inside of the ride too. It's based off of a lot of things, but it is kind of neat that you can see all of this information right inside of the screen too. You can access it online just through like a desktop or even through your phone if you really wanted to on top of that. So I mean, if this video didn't help out, that will for sure. Hopping back to this home screen, then next up is going to be all of your available settings. So let's start off. You've got controls for your exterior lights. You can adjust your headlamp. So if you wanted to have it sit on higher levels, higher or lower, you'd have that flexibility. So it's essentially going to be, where do you want the light to sit? I normally just say at level 0, but that's ultimately going to be your choice. There is ambiance that's available, so there is some ambient light available inside of the ride, so you can adjust it out to different looks if you'd like to. You can also control the brightness of the ambiance. From there, you've also got rain sensitive for your wipers, so high, medium, or low. And one thing when I first hopped inside of the car is I defaulted to look off to the right-hand side for a glove box, but nothing off to the right. But I saw this button, and it's your glove box button, so when you tap it, look at that. Definitely borrowed from the Nissan Ariya, but that's pretty neat that that's available as an option. And one cool thing is that you can also enter in a pin if you wanted to lock the glove box out completely. You could open and close the trunk from the inside. There's also one pedal drive available too, so you could use the accelerator pedal or the brake when you've got one pedal drive on. But with one pedal drive, you take your foot off the accelerator and you slow down very rapidly instead. So matter of preference there. And then driver alert, if you start to veer over too many times without signaling, the car sees you kind of nodding off or yawning too often, it's going to let you know that you might want to take a break. But you can toggle that one off if it drives you crazy. Hopping into your settings gives you so many options. You've got your driving options here, so whether or not you're pilot assist versus just speed limiter. Speed limiter is a pretty interesting system. So with the speed limiter turned on, it takes the road speed into account. So when you've got the adaptive cruise control system turned on, let's say if you've got it set at 60, 70, 80, 100 miles or 100 kilometers an hour, if the road speed is, let's say 40, it's not going to go past that point. So even if you have it set at 60 and the road speed is 50, it won't go past 50. You can hit the accelerator pedal if you actually wanted to speed up to try to get closer to that limit. But after you take your foot off the accelerator, it's going to bring you back down to the actual speed limit. There's steering assist too. So again, as long as it recognizes the lane markings, keeps you nice and balanced in your lane. Then there's this one, lane change assist, which, I mean, that's a pretty neat one in and of itself. So when you hit the turn stalk to go left or right, and as long as the vehicle recognizes the lane markings and it's available, you'll get a message on the top of this part of the screen letting you know essentially if there's a space available left or right. If there is, you hit that turn stalk to go left or right, and you have to keep your hands on the wheel, but it'll automatically change lanes for you if you'd like to. You can interrupt it as well if it's going too slow or if you wanted to just cut in yourself, but that's neat, it's available. You can also have the vehicle adapt to the speed. So let's say if the speed's currently at 80 and it drops down to 60, it can slow you down. If it's at 60 and it increases to 80, it can speed you up as well. And then your interval. So you've got 3 different levels for how close or far you are away from the vehicle that's in front of you. So you've got essentially level 1, level 2, level 3. I recommend level 1 if you're using it on residential streets. You might want to be on level 2 on highways or interstates, depending on your comfort level, or level 3. Level 3 for sure in snowy, slippery conditions, but it's going to be a matter of preference. You can toggle one pedal drive on, so you'll see a few different settings that are repeated, a few different spots. Your steering feel, do you want to have it like softer, medium, or firm? I'm personally a fan of having it firm. Hill descent control, do you want to turn stability control off? That one's a matter of preference. Where you really want to do that is that if you're not getting traction on the vehicle. Lane keeping aid, again, the one that nudges you back into your lane, or a series of safety settings that are available too. So lane departure warning, you start to veer over into another lane without signaling, you will get a warning. Do you want an alert? Let's see here, rear collision warning. So with yourself in reverse there, it'll let you know as you go to back up if there's a potential obstacle in behind you as well. Blind spot system. So if somebody enters the blind spot on either side of the vehicle, it's going to highlight right there, letting you know if somebody's entered the blind spot. And then on the top of the screen here, it also lets you know very subtly if somebody's entered the blind spot on either side of that system there as well. Let's see, do you want to get speed limit warnings? Yay, nay. I'm not a fan of those, but you can get it. And then are you okay with going over or under the speed limit? Rear cross traffic alert, as you go to back up, if somebody's coming perpendicular, from the left or the right side, it can let you know of a potential collision. And next up, you've got a series of different controls. So car mode's kind of neat. So car wash mode, what that one's going to do is, well, you can see here, closing the windows, folding everything as necessary. So if you're going through a car wash, you won't have the windshield wipers going nuts. It's actually kind of cool that's available. And then parking comfort, which is going to keep the climate control settings turned on. Maximum up to when you get to 20% of your battery, but you can also set it for a certain time. So if you know you're going to be shopping for 2.5 hours, you're going to leave your husband in the car, you've got that flexibility of adjusting it out this way if you'd like to. Then you can also turn the car off this way instead. You can adjust the brightness of the screen, toggle your fog lamps on, off, adjust all of your lights. So there's an auto mode versus a dark mode. I'm personally a bigger fan of the dark mode. That's why I've got it this way, but the auto mode essentially is going to be that light mode instead. You can adjust the brightness of the screen, but I don't know, I'm personally a big fan of this one, but you could go either or. Auto means that it's going to flip you between the day or the night mode, just depending on how bright it is. And then if you want to clean the screen because things have gotten a little bit too greasy with fingerprints, you could wipe the screen down, and you're going to press and hold the button along the bottom there. And that's going to bring the screen back to life again. There are a few different light modes. Again, we've seen that one earlier. Adjusting your interior lights, your courtesy light, nothing interesting. Your reading light up overhead instead. And let's see here, mirrors and wipers. We've already seen adjusting out your mirrors there. You can fold them out this way. So again, you'll see a few of these things done a few different ways. Do you want to lock the rear windows so people in the back can't open them up? Other options for locks. Nothing exciting. Auto unlock doors when you go to put the vehicle into park. This is where you're going to lock the glove box. So if you want the glove box locked, so you've got some valuables in there, you can lock it out. And then that hot button press that we saw along the home icon here, so opening up your glove box, you wouldn't be able to use that without entering a password instead. It's actually pretty neat that that's available as an option. Proximity lock as you go to walk away from the vehicle or walk towards it. Do you want the doors to automatically lock, unlock? Do you want all doors to become unlocked or just the driver's side door? The light on the outside of the vehicle when you're walking away, do you just want it to turn off or stay on for up to 90 seconds? When the vehicle locks, do you want a sound? Do you want the side view mirrors to fold in? Do you want the windows to automatically close as you walk away? So if you've got the windows down, you walk away, it can lock it, fold the side view mirrors, and close the windows for you automatically. It's kind of neat. Steering wheel buttons, where you'd have the flexibility of adjusting out just a single button. So your customizable button is this little feller. So as a default, that's going to change up the screen view along the top of the screen, but you can also have it toggle one pedal drive on or off. Your glove box you can open, your trunk you can open there as well. And then some basics for sound. So do you want it focused on the driver, people in the back? And you can also adjust your equalizer. So what I'd recommend here is play one of your favorite songs. And while you're doing it, you can adjust this out in order to customize it a little bit more. So you can really get full control over how the audio sounds. Like I said, play one of your favorite songs, adjust this out until it sounds perfect for you, or you can just go back to any of the default settings instead. You can adjust out individual volumes for everything. For media, if you wanted to adjust out your call volume, your voice assistant volume, parking sensors and things like that, everything can be adjusted this way if you like. Connectivity options, you can toggle Bluetooth off completely. If you've got phones connected, this is where they'll show up. Wi-Fi, whether or not you want to connect to a Wi-Fi network at home. Benefit there, you could download offline maps, and then some options for charging. So with charging, you can adjust a few things out. So typically, general rule of thumb, you want to be able to target out to 90% max. If you're going to be using the vehicle tomorrow and you're going for a distance trip, say long or custom, but you could target it out to whatever option you'd want to here. But like I said, if you're going to be using the vehicle tomorrow for a longer trip, go up to 100%. Otherwise, it's a general good rule of thumb to keep it at 80 or 90% so you don't prematurely wear the battery out. You could also limit the charging current. So if you've plugged into a station, whether that's at home or somewhere public, and it's giving you problems, it's not charging up properly, you can also adjust out your maximum allowable amperage. So you could select it at a different level, and one of the benefits there is that it's going to affect the overall charging rate. So if you're on a fast charger and it's not charging up properly, you can adjust this out until charging actually kicks in and starts for you instead. Then you can also schedule when you want charging to happen. So let's say if you know you're going to get cheap electricity rates from 7 o'clock, yeah, that's actually pretty good, 7 until 6:45, you can have it so that it's only going to charge up during that window. And then there's also the Volvo EX30 phone app, and that's strictly for the EX30 as well. It's a really straightforward app to use and set up, but if you want a walkthrough on actually setting the app up and how it's used, check down in the description of this video for how it's done, but it's very straightforward to do. Moving back, you've got all of your basic charging options here. I'm fine with charging up all the time. There are user profiles that are available. One of the big benefits there is that if you've got multiple people driving the vehicle, you can select different profiles. So it's going to remember everything. If you've signed into your Google account, if you've got all of your climate settings set up a certain way, your driver's seat set up a certain way, you can select it this way. You could toggle it in order to be able to link to an account. You can connect an individual key to it. There are privacy options available here too, and for this specific profile. So you'd have the flexibility to do it or completely remove the profile. There's some basic privacy information, nothing overly exciting here. There's an ads manager. Technically, it's a Google device, so it has to have it. I've never seen ads inside of this vehicle, but it's a little concerning that it's there. Then you've got some basic system information. So you could adjust out the language if you'd like to. So you can adjust out your language to English, Spanish, or French, or so many different options. It's one of the benefits of it being Google-based. Text-to-speech and keyboard info, there's nothing exciting. Date and time, you could have it automatically update. So these things are grayed out because you're in the auto mode. So you could then set the date and the time manually if you'd like to. I'm fine with being in auto. If you live somewhere where you straddle a time zone and it's constantly flipping you from one to the other, you can toggle that off, and then you could select your own time zone if you'd like to. So if you wanted to permanently lock a time zone into place, you'd have the flexibility to do it. And then do you want to use the 12 versus 24-hour mode? So you prefer to use that military timing or just the 0 to 12. Measurement unit, you can also adjust out. So do you want to be in either kilometers or miles? So that's going to adjust everything out for you here. Do you want to be in kilometers or miles per hour instead? Celsius or Fahrenheit for your climate. And then your range estimate here. So certified is going to be the actual maximum range that you're going to get. Dynamic is based off of all of your conditions. So how cold it is outside, if you've got your climate going and a bunch of other things. I always recommend keeping it on dynamic because that's going to be the most accurate version of what you're actually going to expect with your total available range. But you can adjust any of these things out if you'd like to. There's basics for apps, notifications, permissions. There's nothing exciting there. And then you've got reset options here too. So you could reset network settings. So if you've got issues with the car, you could reset that way. You could do a full reset for the car, and that's going to wipe the screen out. So if you're running into any sort of issues, you can do a full factory reset this way if you'd like. What you actually want to do is a soft reboot. So in order to do the soft reboot, you're going to push and hold the volume down button on the right side and push and hold the cruise control down button on the left side. So you push and hold those ones for about 10 seconds or so. Just going to keep on hanging on. And then you're going to release after about 10 seconds. There you go. You can see there the screen has now turned off and you've entered a soft reboot cycle. And what that's going to do, like I said, it's going to get rid of the majority of issues that you might be facing. So if CarPlay's not working, if you're getting weird messages or the screen is glitched out and it's just not working properly, do that soft reboot instead by pushing those down buttons along the steering wheel on the left and the right pad. And after a few seconds, that's going to enter this full reboot cycle. Down low, you've got a wireless charge pad inside of the ride. And then there's this little floor area where you can lift it up to show a few USB Type-C power points. And these are strictly going to be charge ports. So Apple CarPlay inside of the ride is strictly going to be wireless. There's no backwards compatibility, but you could still plug in over USB if you wanted to charge that way. Or you could just drop your phone there to charge up. And then the other thing to point out on the key fob is that if you have this physical fob, so if you have this little guy, there's no way to actually pull the battery out. So it's a lithium-ion rechargeable battery. So you just have to make sure that every now and again, as you're driving, you just drop it here in order to charge up. Yeah, you can see there. So you can charge it up as you go, but that's one thing to take into account there. But that floor storage area is interesting. Window controls that you would typically find along the door there are actually on the console here. And this console is locked into place. You can see there's a teeny little area there you can slide out in order to get to some cup holders. Super dirty here, but that's kind of neat. You can like adjust it at multiple levels, which is kind of nice, but there's no way that you can open up this part of the armrest. So that is locked into place there, but that's kind of cool. You could adjust out your windows there. So open and close, lock, unlock the vehicle, adjust some rear settings out there too. Adjusting the side view mirrors, all done through the infotainment system as well. But here. So there are a few different types of seating material that are available. This one, I'm a big fan of blue. So looking at that blue and black, I personally love it. As much as I love lighter interiors as well, because they look really good, in the few cars that I've driven that have had lighter interiors, they get dirty so quickly. Like the seats start showing, like if you wear jeans, like blue jean pant dye, you'll see it on the actual light seats themselves. So I normally just recommend going for a darker seat. Unless you're like super retentive and you're going to make sure that the seats stay clean all the time. But I personally am a bigger fan of this darker look with that darker headliner. Up overhead, there's an auto-dimming rearview mirror. So later on at night, if there's an idiot behind you flashing their high beams, that's going to dim out automatically. Got some basic controls for your cabin lights there. There's an SOS mode, help mode, four-way blinkers are there, so you can get at it from up high or through the infotainment system there. And then you've got a fixed glass panoramic roof that just opens things up so nicely. And one thing that I've found is that on super bright days, it does get a little bit bright inside of the cabin. So the one thing I would probably do is tint this out a little bit more to make it a little bit darker, but it is kind of nice at the same time. From there, dropping down, I guess you've got like a little ticket receipt holder there. This little feller. Okay, so there's a vanity mirror with no light built in. And then this, unfortunately, does not stretch out. So you're going to have a little bit of sun hitting your face as you drive. Not going to be too bad though, but still something to consider. But yeah, the interior here is good. Pillar-wise, you're not going to notice a huge issue there. One other thing I'll point out is that in the back, so you can see there with the rear window, it's a little bit lower profile, so it can be a little bit tricky to see out the back, but I mean, it's not bad by any stretch. And then since this doesn't have a traditional start-stop, when you open the door, the car technically has now turned off. But solid. Inside of the second row here, it's just as simple. So you've got your handle there, nice little bit of storage down low, storage along the side, no pockets behind either the driver's side or the passenger side seat, but you can see there, a little bit of storage, which is pretty useful. And with the driver's seat set up for myself the way that I would traditionally drive, I could move the seat a little bit further forward, but in the second row, I've got a decent amount of knee space, got some foot space there, and head space, with me sitting fully upright, is actually pretty damn good. 3.5 inches of headspace there, which is solid. No complaints. On the floor, you are looking at no hump in the middle, little hump in the middle. All right. So middle seat there. I can fit in the middle seat. I gotta have a little bit less headspace. And I gotta say, like, normally middle seats are the forgotten seats in most cars. It's not the most comfortable seat by any stretch, but I mean, if you had to get people back here, it's doable. If they're bigger like I am, like a little bit wider shouldered, 3 full-size adults would be tight like most 5-seat vehicles. Not impossible to fit people back here, so if you're in a bind, they'd be okay. Up overhead, you could get a little hanger if you'd like to there, but no hook right from the factory. There's a little cabin light there too, and that's the same along the driver's side. So a little cabin light up overhead. Down low, you've got all of your necessary anchor points there with the top tethers in behind. Adjustable headrest there too. And then these things are locked into place. But it's simple back here, nice and easy. The design elements of the seat in the back are kind of nice. Yeah, blue, love it. But I think Volvo did a pretty good job on the EX30, especially considering the price point. It is nice that you've got a full 5-seat electric. That's got a pretty decent range on it too. Charging inside of the EX30 is done just along the driver's side. It's got support for level 1, level 2, and level 3 DC supercharging, which is useful. There is a charge cable available right at time of purchase, and that charge cable does have support for level 1 and for level 2, so that is available. And the overall charge times, there are so many things that go into factoring how long it's going to take. I don't have a level 2 charge station at home or a plug outside, so I'm strictly level 1. It's about a 1 kilowatt hour draw. So the EX30 has a 69 kilowatt hour battery, which means to go from 0 to 100% is going to take about 69 hours. But you're looking at 3 days to go from 0 to 100%. Level 2, if you've got a home charging station, let's say a 6 kilowatt hour draw, you're 10 to 12 hours to go from that 0 to 100. It's cold outside right now, which means that charging will take a little bit longer. So general rule of thumb for electric vehicles is that charging takes about 20% longer, and you lose about 20% of your range in colder conditions, like -10, -20 Celsius. So that's something to consider. And then the overall range is going to depend on if you're in the rear wheel or all-wheel drive setup. So the all-wheel drive setup is 253 miles maximum, or 402 kilometers, versus in the rear-wheel drive setups are around 402 kilometers, which is not bad by any stretch. And that's one of the other reasons I'd recommend looking at the all-wheel drive option. You only take a small hit to the overall range. The EX30 has a key fob that's incredibly simple. There's no lock, unlock buttons, etc. But the majority of the features that you're looking at are accessible through the EX30 app. And that's where you can get into setting charging schedules. You can precondition the cabin. You can't set it at certain times, unfortunately, but you can at least turn the climate on. So a few minutes before you have to leave to work, precondition the cabin so that the battery's ready. The cabin's nice and toasty for you when you hop inside, so you're not draining the battery unnecessarily. And there are some other pretty neat features that you can do inside of that app. But if you want to walk through on how it's set up, you'll find that in the description of this video. The EX30 is pretty low profile when you look at the back end, and the design is just as simple as the front. You've got LED lights in the back, and the same black bezel that you found in the front follows through here, except that gloss highlight is kind of split across the middle, and it shoots all the way across. Technology-wise back here, you're always going to find the reverse park sensing system, the backup camera, along with the rear wiper. So those are features that are there regardless. And you do have the option of towing inside of the EX30. It doesn't matter if you're rear wheel or all-wheel drive, max towing capacity is going to be 2,000 pounds, which is pretty solid. So small boats, trailers, you're okay there. One thing to consider though, when you're towing inside of electric, similar to gas engines, is that as you go to tow, the more weight you're towing, the worse your economy is going to get. So inside of the electric world, the more you tow, the worse your range is going to be. It's not going to be a crazy huge drop, but if you're pulling 2,000 pounds, it's going to be very noticeable, the range drop. Versus if you've just got a bike rack carrier, not going to be as big of a drop. So that's just something to consider if you're towing. Getting into the trunk of the ride can be done a few different ways. There's a button inside of the infotainment system, and then since the key fob is a little bit more simplistic, the way to do it in the back, the L in Volvo. Trace right above, there's a button back there. Up it goes. Nice slow power, and you can see there's also a tiny little cargo cover in the back on top of that. Removing it, incredibly simple as well. Then the actual cargo space in the back here, it's a smaller car, so that's something to consider, but there's a decent amount of space just in the cargo area by itself. Nothing off to the right-hand side. Off to the left is the only 12-volt power point that you're going to find inside of the ride. That's one downside, because I've got a dash cam that's tracing along to the front right now. But I mean, if you've got a dash cam setup, ideally you're hardwiring it in. But I mean, at the same time, it is frustrating that that's the only spot for a 12-volt. There definitely should be one in the front cabin, but outside of that, nothing really back here. You're going to find a little med kit that's got Velcro on it, so you can kind of toss it wherever you'd like to in the trunk, which is pretty cool. Then, lifting up the little storage tray in the back, you're going to find a few things, just depending on how your vehicle's built out. And I'm using it right now for the charge cable. So it is nice that there's a charge cable right from the factory. It's about 20 feet with support for level 1 and for level 2. Just have to unscrew the top in order to be able to adjust the tips out, but I don't have a level 2 charger at home or no plug outside, so it's just old school level 1, which takes so long. Now, folding down the second row seats inside of the EX30 is going to be a process. From the back, you should easily be able to reach it from here. If you can't, you can easily access it from the second row, but there's a button along the top of the seat there. You're just going to push that and then drop the seats down. Same idea. So it's a 60-40 bench, so it's 40 on the driver's side, 60 on the passenger. You can fold each seat down independently, and you might need to move the first row seats forward, just depending on how far forward or backwards those seats sit. But there's a surprising amount of space in the back end of the EX30. The measurements that you're looking at behind the first row there are going from right where that liftgate would close to just in behind the little armrest between the first row seats. So if the driver's seat, passenger seat were forwards or backwards, you'd gain or lose a little bit of extra space, but there's a surprising amount of space inside of the trunk of this ride. And then reinstalling this little feller, nice and simple, just up and down, there we go. And then you're gonna find a little hoop. All you're gonna do is just line that hoop up along both sides and closing the trunk along the top. First impressions of the EX30, it's a pretty neat little car. It does take a little bit of getting used to not having a head-up display or having any sort of traditional cluster screen and very simplified interior. No complaints though. Let's do some en route handling here. And go. Oh, Volvo. So nice. It's an electric, so it's naturally going to be able to speed up a little bit faster, but that is clean. Very nice. Acceleration is fantastic. And I will give the EX30 this. It is incredibly quiet inside of this car. Like, incredibly quiet. Wow. Okay, like a little bit of ambient road noise, but it is not bad by any stretch. Cool. It's got a smaller battery, which, I mean, no big deal if you're just getting into an electric for the first time, or if you don't travel far distances. The EX30 doesn't have a huge range by any stretch, so just putting around town, local driving, even if you have to do the occasional longer trip, not necessarily a bad thing, I would say. No, not at all. And that was everything you needed to know about the Volvo EX30. You can find all of the build details for this Volvo down in the description, along with links off to Volvo Canada, US, and some shorter tech walkthrough videos too. If you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, share it with someone if you think they might find it helpful, and until I see you next time, take care. Power-wise, inside of the EX30, there are two different, and the overall charge times are going to depend on a number of factors. Are you level, draw your 10 to 12 hours to go from that 0 to 100 in ideal conditions. It's weather, it's cold outside.